It's the SNL Hall of Fame podcast with your host, Jamie Dew, Chief Librarian Thomas Senna, and featuring Matt Ardill. And now, curator of the hall, Jamie Dew.
Thank you so much, Doug DeNance. It is a thrill for me to be here with you all this week inside the SNL Hall of Fame. Before you walk inside, though, if you could just do me the simple favor and wipe your feet, honey child. That's what I'm looking for. So, clean shoes, clean souls, clean eating, clean living, clean SNL Hall of Fame. The SNL Hall of Fame podcast is a weekly affair where each episode we take a deep dive into the career of a former cast member, host, musical guest, or writer and add them to the ballot for your consideration. Once the nominees have been announced, we turn to you, the listener, to vote for the most deserving and help determine who will be enshrined for perpetuity in the hall. That's how we play this game. It's just that simple. So I'm pleased that you're here with us this week. I'm here that you're pleased with us every week. But we have one heck of a show this week for you. I hope you have battened down the hatches, as it were, because business is about to pick up. Now, I am a little out of breath here as I walk down the corridor past the Weekend Update exhibit. And, there's the unfrozen caveman lawyer exhibit. A real great one if you get the chance to see it here. But where I'm actually headed is the intersection of two walls meeting and forming a corner. And we call that Matt's Minutia Minute corner. And, let me go get him. Matthew, my young boy, how are you doing today?
I am good, thanks. I'm good. And you, my good man?
I got a little case of the gout, but it doesn't stop me from wiping my feet. So I'm relatively happy with that.
Good. Hopefully I'll be able to cheer you up a little bit with some trivia.
I would love to hear about Anne Hathaway.
Terrific. Well, she is 5'8", born November 12th, 1982. She was named after William Shakespeare's wife. Her family are theater fans. She is a native New Yorker and was a theater nerd growing up. She attended Brooklyn Heights Montessori School and Wyoming Elementary School, taking part in high school plays before going on to attend NYU. She is the granddaughter of radio personality Joe McCauley, and her mother, Kate McCauley, was an actor and singer who performed in the first touring company of Les Miserables, which Anne followed her all along the entire tour at the age of 8, which is when she fell in love with the stage.
I guess so.
Yeah. So as a teen, she was cast as Get Real for her first appearance, followed by her big breakout in the Princess Diaries. She grew up actually wanting to become a nun, and as the husband of a Catholic, I can say about 80% of Catholic girls, I think, for the first 10 years of their life want to be nuns until they figure out what it involves. She reevaluated her relationship actually with the church on finding out her brother was gay at the age of 15, and her family left the church at that point. She is the first and only teenager ever admitted into the acting program at the Borough Group in New York, 3 days before getting cast in the TV show Get Real. She's performed in 2 Carnegie Hall concerts as a high school honors chorus member. Was almost cast in the Phantom of the Opera movie, but was unfortunately maybe fortunately for her, unable to perform in it due to conflicts with filming of the Princess Diaries 2. She has gone on to 56 acting roles, 8 producing role credits, 17 soundtrack credits, Currently has 4 upcoming films. She's been nominated for 2 Academy Awards, 3 Golden Globes, and a BAFTA, as well as having won 1 Oscar, a Golden Globe, a SAG, a BAFTA, and a Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Voiceover for her role in The Simpsons in 2018. She was named the Hasty Pudding Woman of the Year by Harvard, and her greatest honor is being one of the first 50 nominees to the New Jersey Hall of Fame for just being cool and from the Garden State. She is only one of 8 women to have won an Oscar for a musical. And in 2011, two-handed the Oscars with James Franco, who was a jerk to her the entire time. Yeah, so the one thing I really found out when looking into Anne that I found hilarious was when she got her big break for the Princess Diaries, she auditioned on a stopover while traveling to New Zealand to film The Other Side of Heaven. She met Gary Marshall partway through the flight during a stopover, and she was so nervous she fell off of her chair during the audition, and she just kept her composure so well, he thought it was a bit, and he cast her on site. He cast her immediately at that point.
What
so
luck.
she
That's
rolls
so
with the
great.
punches. Yeah, she just rolls with the punches.
Well, I wonder what she'll do if she gets handed one of the prestigious plaques from the SNL Hall of Fame in the hosting category.
I think she will put it in a place of prominence.
Well, I think you're right. Right up on her mantle. Well, what do you say we get this show on the road and go downstairs to Thomas Senna in conversation with Kaleena Steakle? So let's go down into the bunker now with the two of those folks and hear what they have to say about Anne Hathaway.
All right, JD and Matt, thank you so much for that introduction. Great as always, a lot of great information about our nominee today, Anne Hathaway. And to talk about this great host, Anne Hathaway, this awesome 3-time SNL host, we have a first-time guest here on the podcast, somebody who I'm really excited to have join us. You probably heard her. She's been a regular on the Saturday Night Network over the past couple of years, doing various things with our friends over there at the SNN. Kaleena Steakle, thank you so much for joining me today. Kaleena, how are you?
I am great, Thomas. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be a first-time guest and so excited to talk about an amazing host.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. Before we get to all things Anne Hathaway and SNL, I know you've been busy. Have you had a chance to jump on recently on the SNN? Like, how's that been?
No, I am criminally behind both on the current season as well as being a guest on the SNN. I've been very kindly invited a couple times, but I have a crazy busy schedule and have not yet been able to jump on this season. But I'm hoping to change that over the next couple of months before they wrap up before the summer.
We're all looking forward to hearing you back on the SNN soon. Your insights have always been very much welcome, and
thank you.
Again, we're very honored that to have you here as a guest to talk about our nominee today for the SNL Hall of Fame, Anne Hathaway. So, Kaleena, since you're a first-time guest here on the SNL Hall of Fame, I'd like to give the listeners a little peek into kind of your SNL fandom and history. So tell us about your SNL fandom. When did that start? If you have any particular eras that you consider like your era, like tell us about you and SNL.
Absolutely. First and foremost, I'm an actor. And so I've been watching movies and television shows for as long as I can remember. And even though I did kind of initially maybe start in drama, I also watched a lot of like Adam Sandler, David Spade, like Rob Schneider growing up as a kid. And I didn't quite know them with their SNL association, but I knew I liked their style of comedy. And it was really around, I want to say like 2008, 2009, and maybe part of it was just because of all the political kind of coverage going on. Maybe that's how I kind of became a little bit more aware of SNL. I started watching really religiously around that time. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's maybe the same year that Anne Hathaway actually hosted. So she would have been one of my first hosts that I watched. And it kind of just started of like, I loved the format. I loved the idea that every single week, countless people were coming together to create something new and fresh and topical. And I'm a writer as well. And I know how difficult it is to be bold and brave enough to like put your ideas out there and to challenge yourself to be smart and like timely and come up with something that's just so good that they're going to put it on TV and all your friends are going to do it and everyone's going to laugh. Like, it's so much pressure. And I just could not believe that some sort of institution still existed where every week that's what people were doing. So I think honestly, I was just intrigued by the concept of what Saturday Night Live was. And then me being just such a geek and a nerd and like a movie aficionado, I was like, oh, then I can see these people that I love from these movies playing these really silly characters and putting on costumes. And I can see people like Bill Hader making sounds and faces at them and making them laugh. And so it just became something that it didn't make sense how it wasn't already like a part of my personality. And then it really became like my whole identity. And then very specifically, my friend and I like really latched on to Seth Meyers and we got obsessed with the goodbyes at the end of the show. And we'd be like, Seth seems like he gives the best hugs and just like little things like that. And so it just became a part of my staple. And it's been a steadfast, loving relationship ever since.
Yeah, if you have any insight, I don't know if you, going through Anne Hathaway's episodes, if you took note of the goodbyes. I like to sometimes when I go rewatch some of these episodes.
Yeah.
So if you have anything to say about the goodbyes, I'd be interested. If not, that's okay. but you're like me. Like I tend to really pay attention to the good nights and stuff. I'm always intrigued by that. And you as an actor and a writer, you have to appreciate the high wire act of SNL that goes into creating an episode. A lot of people, casual viewers, don't seem to grasp how hard it is to put on an episode of SNL.
Right.
But I'm sure you appreciate that, Kaleena.
I do, yeah. I mean, even before, so I've been lucky to attend SNL, I think 3 or 4 times. And man, I mean, I know that especially if you don't live on the East Coast, it's such a privilege and a rare occurrence to be able to experience that. But whatever you think you know about how the show works, and then when you watch people do this over a 90-minute, 2-hour thing, and you're watching the crew come in and tear down and build sets so quickly. I'm also a theater kid, and so there's like an even deeper level of appreciation because I know what it's like where you have like 10 seconds with the lights down to build an entirely new environment and get people in costume changes and get them back on stage and ready to find their light. It's really phenomenal. And when I lived in Chicago, where I spent half my life, as well as just various trips I would take to New York for a while, I think around 2015, there was like a traveling SNL exhibit that was going around. And so you got to go and really see the insights and like the inner workings of like, all right, Thursdays is when they start set construction and it starts, these like warehouses out by the water. And then you find out like when hair and makeup and the wigs start getting made. And it's so intricate. And it's like the phrase "it takes a village" doesn't even seem to sum it up because it is hundreds upon hundreds of people who have to be so exact and so good at their job and all working in harmony. And if one person missteps, then there's potential for the entire thing to go wrong. And they do this live every single, I don't think people grasp that. It's in the title, but I don't think they fully understand it. So yeah, like being in the industry, it's such an exciting thing to observe and be a fan of and get to see how it gets produced every week because it's the best of the best. That's why it exists. And that's why it's so hard to become part of it. Yeah,
I just got chills when you were describing it. That was like perfectly well put. That's one of the big reasons why I continue to, for better or for worse, some weeks are better than others. We all know this as fans.
Yes.
That's a big reason why I continue to watch is because of that. Like, I know what goes into it.
Yeah.
It's so impressive to me that they're even putting on a show.
Right.
And how they do. So I got to ask, so being in Studio 8H, that's an amazing experience. What episodes did you check out in person?
Yeah, so my first ever one was Sterling K. Brown in 2018. It was a whirlwind of a weekend. Friday, the day before, I'd gotten a very minor medical procedure. Everything was fine. I also had the flu. I was also on heavy pain meds. I think I might have literally been on Vicodin or something because of my procedure.
Oh man.
And so and then I was working a full-time job during the day from 8 to 5, and then I was also shooting an independent film from 7 p.m. to sometimes 2 or 3 a.m. And so it was just the most insane week. Like, my body was fully shutting down. And for those who don't know, it's a little bit different if you live in New York and you can go do the standby line. But the SNL lottery, it opens up for 31 days, once a year, every August. And you just kind of pitch an email, say, hey, I'd love to see the show. And then at random from September to May, you may or may not get an email saying that you've been awarded like 1 or 2 tickets to the show. And in my case, I was only given a 5-day notice that I had tickets. And I lived in Texas at the time. And so I was like, how do I scramble up $400 for a flight to New York? And how do I rearrange my work schedule? I ended up, I tried to call out of work sick, and it didn't work. And I ended up having to like block my boss on Facebook and like block the security officer, made up this elaborate lie. I went to a different doctor's office pretending to be like sick with something and asked them to write me a note that said I needed to stay home for 4 days so that corporate like literally couldn't force me to come in so I could sneak off and go see SNL. So like that's the stakes with my first time going.
Yeah.
I'd also just finished watching or like catching up to This Is Us. And so Sterling K. Brown being the host, I was so excited for. And I was like, when you step into Studio 8H, you are buzzing. It is like a level of excitement and jittery and like you're vibrational as a human being.
Like an out-of-body experience.
Yes. And I was going up to like every single staff member, every single NBC page. I'm like, guys, it's my first time and I'm from Texas, and just really making a big deal and like talking about who my favorite cast members were. And I think I berated everyone just enough because one of the pages goes, all right, we're going to put you in the front. And they sit me front row, right in front of the stage on the floor. It was the greatest experience. I cannot believe that was my first time. Wow. And then I ended up seeing the Kim Kardashian episode, during which I leaned over to my friend during the Aladdin sketch and I said, her and Pete Davidson are about to become a thing. And then the one that I feel most privileged to have attended was Jason Sudeikis's episode. Jason, we'll get into this later, but Sudeikis is my favorite cast member of all time. And so getting to go see him specifically, I slept overnight on the sidewalk for him, rearranged my entire weekend, and it was just the best. I highly encourage anyone who wants to go see the show, find the money, make the time, sleep on the sidewalk, go see it, because it is an experience unlike anything else in the world, I really think.
Yeah, it's amazing. A couple years ago, my wife and I slept on the sidewalk and got standby tickets, and we were there for the Lizzo episode.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so that was a super fun one. A really good host. I think Lizzo did an outstanding job a couple years ago. But yeah, so those are Kaleena's SNL bona fides. That's like you're a true blue fan. Right there. I've seen the show in person 3 times. That's awesome. So as like a true blue fan, like, so as far as hosts go, what do you look for in a good to great SNL host?
Such a good question. And honestly, my answer really varies, because what I love about SNL is they don't just pick comedians or actors. You know, they have athletes, they have political figures. They really kind of try to surprise the audience, I think, with who they pick. And I think that there's always going to be a level of maybe grace that I extend to certain types of hosts, because historically, maybe the athletes aren't going to be as quick-witted, or the timing isn't going to be as strong, or maybe they're looking at the cue cards a lot. But then you'll have people like Jeter, or that one really famous football guy. I don't watch sports,
Peyton
guys.
Manning.
I'm sorry. Yes, that's exactly who I'm thinking of. Yes, Peyton Manning, who's amazing. You know, so sometimes they surprise you. Even Ronda Rousey, I remember thinking like she had fun. And then with actors, maybe you expect a little bit more. With comedians, maybe you expect a little bit more. So my overall like criteria kind of shifts depending on who specifically is hosting. But generally speaking, I'm looking for someone who just looks happy to be there. You know, like I get really worked up. I cry during monologues pretty frequently, especially when they tell stories like I watched when I was a kid, or I watched with like this relative or loved one who's no longer with me, or whatever like their story is. I love seeing people who are like, I'm going to try my best. I don't really care what happens. I'm just lucky to be in the room right now, you know? So I would say passion and excitement. Ideally, I'm looking for someone who is game for the sketches, because the zanier SNL is, the better. When it's good, sharp writing, like a lot of sketches that like Seth Meyers would write, that's amazing. That's like clean comedy. But I also like when they're just so wacky, or what I refer to as like post-update sketches where you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Hosts that are just game to do that and are prepared to kind of be self-deprecating and don't take themselves too seriously, I think are really great. I know this is a little bit harsh because it's not natural, but hosts who are staring at the cue cards the whole time tend to get on my nerves a little bit more because I feel like it's taking away from what I'm trying to enjoy them doing. So I do appreciate people who at least understand how the show is going to function and try their best to kind of adjust themselves to it. But really at the end of the day, like I said, more than anything, I just want to see people who are going out there and having fun and realizing that for that week, they have the best job in the world.
Yeah, I think that qualifies with our nominee today, Anne Hathaway.
100%.
Yeah, and I love being surprised by a host, too.
Yes.
And it's often those people who don't necessarily, they're not known as comedic actors or comedians.
Right.
And those are the ones that are, I find to be really pleasant surprises.
Me too.
Yeah, so prior to her first hosting stint, which was in October of 2008, Anne Hathaway, probably best known, I would say, Princess Diaries, Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah.
There's some funny elements to both of those, I would say, but she wasn't known as like a comedic actor.
Right.
By any means. So do you think there was any indication, like, based on her work up until then, like, that she would be a good host, or was it just like a complete surprise?
I do think so. So I was the perfect age and demographic for Princess Diaries. I was 5 years old when the first Princess Diaries came out. And then I was 8 years old when the second one came out. And then I was a bit too young by the time Devil Wears Prada came around. So I think it was like a couple years later, realistically, that I saw it.
My gray hairs are shaking their fist at you.
Hey,
Right now,
I have gray hairs too, okay? Easy now. I think the Princess Diaries, both of them, I think they are really funny movies. And even if it's not necessarily like the story that's funny the whole time, or if it's not branded as a comedy, Mia Thermopolis as a character does have a lot of physical comedy. And sometimes I think that's maybe like one of the number one tells of who could make like a great host. Not necessarily physical comedy, but understanding timing. Like anyone you speak to that works in the arts will tell you that comedy is so much harder than drama. And so she may have been known as a dramatic actress, or maybe she wasn't specifically labeled as one or the other. But personally, from her film history that existed at that point, I think she showed she's talented. Mm-hmm. She can get a laugh. She can do a good pratfall. She can be awkward. She can be a stunning princess. Like, I think she had shown us enough range that I think it was at least fair to assume she probably has something else under her tool belt, you know? So I wouldn't call it a surprise per se, but maybe, I don't know, like a delightful expansion of what we thought might already be there.
Yeah, I like that. Delightful expansion. I'm going to add that to my lexicon, my repertoire.
Amazing.
SNL, I'll credit you. For sure.
Thank you.
That's great. So one thing is for sure that she was an anticipated host. She was already very popular before her first hosting gig. So when they announced it, I'm sure people were like, oh, cool, Anne Hathaway.
All over it. Yeah.
See what this is all about. So her first episode, season 34, early in the season, it was October 4th, 2008. You and I were talking before I hit record about the monologue and how that can really set the tone. We both love the monologue. So I think she showed out well in her monologue in this episode.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, one of the things I just listed as you know, what I think makes a great host is people who are willing to not take themselves too seriously and poke a little bit of fun at themselves. And one of the first things she does is kind of like address the public, I don't want to say scandal because that's maybe a strong word, but she had been involved in a very public downfall of her relationship, and her partner ended up, I believe, going to prison for
4.5 years, I think. Yeah.
And listen, like, granted, there's the politics behind the show of like her probably being told she would address it, but at the end of the day, she still chose to address it in the monologue, and she did it in a way that was affable and charming and funny. And then she, you know, throws to the audience and she's like, ladies, we can all relate to that, right? And she makes it like an easy, digestible piece of information that she just presented to the audience. Mm-hmm. And I do think it takes a special kind of person to be able to do that, because that could have either been a big elephant in the room, it could have been an awkward pause where the audience doesn't know how to react. And because it's live, the audience at home is also reacting based on how the in-studio audience is reacting. And so I think that was a delicate moment that she handled really well. And I think throughout the entire monologue, which was a shorter one than we're used to these days. I think she was just really charming and funny and sweet, and she was excited and mentioned the band, and she seemed like her energy, I think, was where it needs to be at the top of the show. And wherever the host begins their energy, I think is where the audience, like, they're kind of setting the tone, right, for what the rest of the show is going to be. And it allows and tells the audience where they can meet or match them. So I think it was a really solid first monologue coming from her.
So I just had a busy summer. I did some traveling. I've got a new movie out called Rachel Getting Married. Thank you. Oh, and also, I broke up with my Italian boyfriend, and 2 weeks later, he was sent to prison for fraud. Yeah! Wow! I mean, we've all been there, am I right, ladies?
She had a little bit of nervous energy, but that's to be expected. Like,
Yes.
I don't mind some nervous energy. That's actually kind of endearing, because that just shows me that the person's excited to be there if there's a little bit of nervous energy. But it wasn't distracting. It wasn't like, oh no, how is she going to do tonight? It was more so like she's genuinely excited to be there.
Yeah, it was cute.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point. It does set the tone for how the audience is going to react, and I think Anne showed out well. She did a really great job.
I agree.
I think, with this monologue. As far as this first episode, what's something that you want to highlight from this first episode?
So my two probably favorite sketches from this episode, and one was kind of right off the bat, is the Lawrence Welk show. That to me, that always, I just can't with Kristen Wiig and her tiny little hands. Like, I don't care what else is happening in that sketch. It's always going to make me laugh so much. And she was really fun. I think it got to show off like a little bit of her singing abilities, which is always fun. I love sketches where, especially if it is a host like you were mentioning, where we're not necessarily sure what's in their toolbox. We don't know necessarily what their skill set is or what they're going to show. She hadn't done Les Mis yet. She apparently is I was reading on her ahead of time. Apparently she's a very highly regarded soprano singer. I guess she was in pretty high contention for the Phantom of the Opera movie for Christine, which I didn't know. Yeah. And so personally, I didn't really know that Anne Hathaway sang before Les Mis. And so imagine this, which is 4 years ahead of time. So just a little sketch like that where she just gets to show like a little extra thing that she can do, I think was really cool.
Even though we're a lot alike, we enjoy different things. I like waterfalls. I like butterflies.
We, of course, have a very, very pregnant Amy Poehler in there, which is always so funny. Amy Poehler's pregnancy episodes are top tier for me. She became so much funnier when she factored in an entire other human that was attached to her body.
Yeah. She did that was it with the barfly one?
With Josh Brolin. Oh my God. I think about that at least once a month. Yes, it was absolutely incredible. But yeah, the sketch is just such a fun, silly way to kind of start off the show as well. The cuts to Fred are great, and Donnie's always, playing with her bubbles at the end is really fun. So I think it was a nice soft launch, if you will, for Anne into the episode. Okay, here she is. She's a supporting character. We're not putting too much heavy lifting on her right away, but there's also a chance for her to shine and for the audience to continue rooting for her and latching on to her as the host.
Yeah, this was a good way for the show to ease Anne into the episode, I think. And you're right. And she shows a few times throughout her hosting gigs that she does have a great voice. And that's something I noticed. I'm like, oh my gosh, she could actually sing. And that's something that I wasn't aware of until I started seeing her on SNL. Now that I know, you mentioned that she had done Les Miserables after this. And, this was, it also showed that she was willing to play in SNL's goofy sandbox, right away.
Exactly.
Being in a really goofy sketch, as you mentioned, Kristen Wiig with old baby arms, baby hands, and all that. So it's fun to see a host that's just willing to just be a part of this weirdness. That's what so when we say game, that's what we're referring to, right?
Right. I also, we would be remiss not to mention the Mary Poppins sketch, right? This is one of those type of sketches where I don't have an exact formula, but I think we all in our minds have a certain formula for what makes a perfect SNL sketch. And this is one of those sketches for me. It has, the main focus is something that everyone knows, right? It's a very popular IP. She is beautiful like Mary Poppins. She can sing like Mary Poppins. She gives the appearance. You have Bobby Moynihan, playing like a little kid, which I think is always that's always a home run for me, just seeing Bobby kind of belittle and silly and make funny voices. And then you have Bill Hader being so amazing as the chimney sweep. You have the audio and visual gag of him coming in with his giant like one-man band and, you know, the kind of sound effects with the instruments coming in at just like the worst times. Then you have Will Forte showing up and just making these obscene little side comments. So you have the perfect cast of players, and then you take what is this well-known thing, but then you throw a bizarre premise that supercalifragilisticexpialidocious is actually a liver disease that is spreadable amongst adults. And so then there's... It's dark, and it's very, like, not that SNL is necessarily targeted at strictly younger audiences, but that would be, like, a joke for mom and dad, as you would say. And they run with it. And the fact that they're doing that, like, in front of the kids, and then it kind of insinuates some things about Mary Poppins, which is a very proper, innocent image of a woman, of a character. It is one of those sketches that just has me laughing the whole time, and any opportunity where, you know, there's a cut to Bill Hader making a silly face, I'm going to love that so much, in the same way that I love when they do that to Kenan Thompson. So to me, just one of those perfect sketches, and Anne is so great in it. She's so committed to it, and I think it was really a great way to highlight her throughout the episode as well.
What a delightful new word!
It must be the longest word in the dictionary.
And the silliest!
What does it mean, Mary Poppins?
What? Oh, that doesn't matter. It's just a silly Billy word. Now, who wants to ride a magical carousel?
I do, but first, please tell us what that word means.
Yes, there must be some kind of working definition.
Well, if you must know, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious is a disease of the liver.
I am impressed that Anne was willing to do some dark humor like this. I'm a sucker for dark humor. Quite honestly,
too.
like when to this day, whenever SNL does something like really dark, like last season they did that Christmas Carol one.
Yes.
That
Gosh.
that was super dark.
It really was.
So every now and then, when they go to that well, I love it, and I am impressed, Kaleena, that like when a host is willing to do that. Because correct me if I'm wrong. Like, so if you're a host on SNL and somebody approaches you with this concept of supercalifragilisticexpialidocious actually being a disease of the liver, a lot of hosts may shoot that down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because I think, especially for, I don't want to specify actors necessarily, but generally speaking, the people who host SNL are very much in the public image. And so there's a certain perception of them that they're either trying to maintain, or that they think the public has of them, or maybe they're like managers and publicists are working with them to kind of create a certain persona. So if someone like Anne Hathaway, who maybe is looked, you know, like she has like beautiful brown doughy eyes, like people might perceive her as like very sweet and interesting and darling, and then you throw a joke like this, you're like, whoa, Anne Hathaway making jokes about, you know, this liver disease that she's spreading. There are absolutely some hosts that would be like, yeah, you know, I don't think I really want that association, like with my name or with my likeness. And SNL isn't just live, but then it lives on the internet forever, and it goes into archives, and it can become part of a touring museum. So when you host SNL, it's very permanent in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, I think agreeing with you, it's very much like a signifier of just how down she was, like how game she was to just kind of dive right into what they want to do. And I think that's why she is a multi-time host, because she's probably exactly what the writers and the rest of the team are looking for.
It speaks to the fact that she understands the humor. She understands what's funny about this.
Exactly.
That's why she said she knows, and she knew how to play it too.
She did, yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of having a great actor host SNL, is like they know how to play certain things, and they know how to extract the comedy. They know what their role is in extracting that comedy in the scene. So this Mary Poppins one, perfect example. Like all night, like we were talking about. So we saw that she didn't take herself too seriously in the monologue. She was able to utilize her singing voice that we didn't know about. She was able to play with the cast really well. She was able to understand dark humor. There was a sketch where she danced. She and Bobby Moynihan like cut a rug on the dance floor. That was really fun. So she's showing right away, Kaleena, I think that she gets the show and is willing to throw herself into it.
And all those things as a first-time host. Speaks volumes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why they asked her back relatively soon.
Yeah.
Like it was only a couple of years.
2 years, yeah.
Yeah, so her second episode, season 36, it was November 20th, 2010. Musical guest Florence and the Machine. Another monologue where Anne is just comes across as so likable, like just an extension of her first one. Like as a viewer, her second time out, I'm getting the impression that her first time wasn't a fluke. Like this is going to be a good night again.
Yeah. I think there's a certain like confidence that comes with it. Like you've done it, you know what the process is like, you know what to expect. You can kind of, self-criticize and self-adjust and change where you wish you would have done differently. And I think that not only was the confidence there, but almost like a more deeply founded excitement to be there because she did well the first time and she was back. I think that's definitely very palpable.
What stands out to you from this episode?
There's a couple that stand out to me for sure. This is like one of the sketches that I remember sticking out to me like really early on when I was watching SNL. And what I tell people is like when I try to either explain my sense of humor to people or when I try to force SNL on people, there's like a certain roster of go-to repeated sketches that I'm like, if you aren't laughing within, these 3 or 5 sketches or whatever, then I'll stop trying to convert you. And I've never lost. I have a perfect streak of converting friends. But this was like one of the ones early on, like at that time period that I remember. And that is the Penelope Thanksgiving sketch.
She is ruining this entire day. She's acting like she's the queen of Thanksgiving. I am the queen of Thanksgiving. I now dub thee Sir Waddle of Gobble-Out, so congratulations. Really, Penelope, really? You are the queen of Thanksgiving? Well, I'm the president of Wednesdays. And you know what else? I drive a tanning bed to work. And if I clap 3 times, a wiener dog appears, and oh, my dad's a chocolate chip. And you know what else? If I want to relax, I just turn myself into a pot of soup. So, what do you think about that, Penelope?
The image of Kristen Wiig floating in a celery stalk in a pot of soup is something that is just always with me. That's core imagery in my brain. And I think that is also like another testament to Anne Hathaway where she's coming into a sketch with not only Kristen Wiig, who is so well established, but in a character, if I'm not mistaken, this was not the first Penelope sketch, but in a character that is like well established. And so you're kind of coming in, not like battling with Kristen Wiig in that sense, but you're kind of given a platform that you're expected to step up to if it's going to be funny. Like it kind of gave her a challenge to rise to. And her character was a great foil to Kristen Wiig's Penelope. Like, she was very kind of shy and, like, despondent. She's like, guys, I just want to, like, serve Thanksgiving. We party till 8:30 p.m., guys. Like, she's the complete opposite. And then I also love SNL sketches where you do get to watch a bit of a character arc in the 3 to 4 minute time period. And you see that with Hathaway's character in this. Like, you see her start really sweet and calm, and then her frustrations with Penelope grow. And then, it ends with her trying to match Penelope and bicker and one-up each other. I just think it's one of those like just timeless sketches that is just always going to get a laugh out of me. And I always love what like seasonal sketches they do as well. And to me, this is just one of the classics. Yeah,
this was a Thanksgiving one with Penelope. I love that I'm talking to an actor about something like this because it's such, especially like because we're talking about Anne Hathaway, and that's something I noticed like with this sketch, with this Penelope one. Anne is such a good actor, and it's elevating the sketch.
Yes.
Like you put it exactly right. Like she's playing like this bothered foil to Penelope, and Anne has to sell that escalation.
She does.
Yeah, she has to sell that being more bothered as the sketch goes on, and then she tries to like one up Penelope. She's like, "Oh yeah, well I do this and that," and Anne has to really sell that. Like at first, I'm going to give this person a chance, and then I'm going to gradually act a little more bothered and a little more bothered. Like that takes a really good actor, just straight up like dramatic, comedic or otherwise, just a really good actor to do that. So I love hearing your perspective because that's one of the things that stood out is just like her acting elevated this sketch. That happens a lot, right? You can tell when somebody's acting like totally elevates a sketch.
Yeah, and the two of them are really doing a dance, right? Like what you're saying is she has to continue elevating it, but then so does Kristen has to be consistent but on like an uphill rise, you know? And like Anne is just going up, 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 and then she's going to kind of plateau, where Kristen has to be doing like the same thing every time so that the foil works, you know? So there's like surprisingly a lot of intricacies going on in a sketch like this, I think, to make it really work, especially because it's focused mainly on the two characters and isn't a huge like ensemble sketch. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm like looking way too deep into it, but this is what I think when I watch the show.
This is the stuff, and you put it perfectly with like the roles of each person in this sketch, and that's absolutely correct. Like it's not looking too deep. That's what we do. Hey, that's like we're super.
That's the show. That's what we do.
This is what we do. That's. But I think you're exactly right. That's something that I took note of. This is also Anne playing an SNL sandbox at the time of it. So we're in 2010. Obviously, Kristen Wiig's still there. Yeah. She had done the Lawrence Welk, the DeNance sketch in her prior. So this is another example of playing in the SNL sandbox in a Kristen showcase, saying, hey, I'm here. I'm willing to dive into the weirdness of this show. Just so much respect to Anne Hathaway.
Yeah, I fully agree. There's like two more that really stuck out to me. The Royal Engagement sketch. So funny. I have to say that the majority of this rides on just Fred and Bill being so ridiculous, but that's almost perfectly goes with what you're saying. When it is a showcase of the primetime players, you have to kind of accept your role in it. To be, I guess, a little bit topical, I actually think of what I believe Robert Downey Jr. was saying on the Oppenheimer press tour, that there are some instances, like for Oppenheimer, everyone else walked in knowing this is Oppenheimer's movie. You're just working around him. Like everything you're doing is in support of that thing working. Because if that doesn't work, then the rest of it doesn't work. And that I think is a good metaphor for sketches like this too, or even like Penelope, where like you have to acknowledge what the thing or what the person is and understand why your support of that is critical to making the entire machine kind of run, you know? Like an engine doesn't work if one part goes down. Like it's a symphony going on at all times. So she is playing Kate Middleton, I believe, with William, and she's like meeting the royal family, and then William, an amazing Andy Samberg. I forgot it was Andy until I went back and rewatched it, and I was like, this makes so much sense to me.
Himself into that, didn't he?
He was fully into it. He has to step out of the room, you know, to go take a call, and then when it's just her alone in the room, they all of a sudden, you know, whip out these kind of lazy English accents. Like they kind of drop like the proper royal act, and they're like, all right, so like what's really going on here? Like, let's talk about this.
Your Majesties, William and I have been walking on air. It's all so brilliant and exciting.
Shut up.
What?
I said shut your mouth.
What do you want?
I'm sorry, Your Majesty. What do I want?
Is this what you want? Yeah. Right, you see I sat up here and you like it? Yeah, little girl.
You want a piece of our palace action, eh?
What? You think you could just, like, show up and take over, yeah? Do a bit of queening and that, right?
I beg your pardon, Your Majesty, but why are you two talking like that?
This is how we really talk, love. Not so nice, right?
It's just such a fun premise, kind of flipping the idea of, like, what it is on its head. Giving space, sandbox is such a great word to use, like giving space in the sandbox for them to throw sand or kick sand or bury each other in sand. And poor Anne is just there kind of having to be like a little bit more of the straight man to Bill and Fred, who are kind of getting to have fun, but she's still not only as Anne Hathaway in the sketch, but as the character of Kate in the sketch, has to still be like likable and still has to be someone that the audience is rooting for in those 3 to 4 minutes. Otherwise, it doesn't make what Bill and Fred are doing funny, you know? Right. So I think she was really great. I think that her energy and her timing matched really well with Bill and Fred. Again, you know, SNL is topical a lot of the time. So I think that was probably one of the more fun ones to not just be totally zany and out of the box, you know?
Yeah, in a sketch like this, you have Bill, as you mentioned, Bill and Fred are the more wacky characters. Fred plays like a punk rock version of Queen Elizabeth, like a Queen Elizabeth that was in like the Sex Pistols or the Clash or something like that in the late 70s. Like so and Bill is matching Fred. So it's just the two of them, and Anne as Kate Middleton has to play this to where she's uncomfortable, but it's still the queen.
Right.
Ultimately. So she can't be too outraged. She can't vocally be too outraged and complain to William.
A bit more reserved.
So she has to be more reserved. She has to seem uncomfortable, but still can't play it up too much because it is ultimately the queen in front of her.
Right.
So she still has to keep up appearances and make the queen kind of like endear herself to the queen.
Yeah.
So it's like this interesting balance.
It's a good dynamic, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Like the look on Anne's face as Kate Middleton when Fred slides from the proper Queen Elizabeth to the punk rock Queen Elizabeth. It's
props
like really,
the leg up on the chair.
Exactly. Like that's really good acting on
it
her
is.
part. This is just another strong one. This is a Fred, like more of a Fred show. I know Bill, but this is more of a Fred show.
It's a Fred, yeah.
So this is a nice pull.
100%. Yeah, and then I think my other favorite sketch was The Essentials with Robert Osborne, which was the, I guess you'd say like the behind the scenes or the deleted footage from Wizard of Oz, would you say? Yeah.
What are you doing? Are you going to sing a song? Are you going to sing? Dorothy.
Rub my eyes, and in that
Dorothy.
land beyond the skies,
Did you write this song?
you'll find
Scarecrow, did you write this?
over
This melody is so good. Do you guys know this song? I never heard it in my life.
I think this was so fun because another great little vehicle for Fred to kind of just be the off-putting kind of zany characters as what the chicken that goes on top of the farmhouse that tells you what direction. I don't know what that's called, but
I didn't grow up on a farm. I forgot what it was called.
He's like the prop on top of the farmhouse.
Yeah. It gets a chicken or a turkey or
northwest,
something.
east, and south, and when the wind blows, it spins. Yeah. But more than that, more than just like a fun vehicle for Fred, what a great opportunity for Anne to throw in kind of an impression that I think maybe people weren't expecting. Like in the same way that you can say she was doing the Mary Poppins impression, she was doing this great, frankly, like Judy Garland impression, which is in some ways it's like a classic go-to, but it's also hard to capture not just like the voice of Judy, but the feeling of Judy, the essence of Judy, the youthfulness, because I think a lot of people forget that she was supposed to be very young in that movie. And so it's a great like acting opportunity for Anne as well. And much like you've been saying, a worse actress maybe wouldn't have sold this sketch as much, wouldn't have been as charming. And so thus again, like the jokes don't land. Like Fred's jokes don't land if Anne's not doing a good job. Like Bill's jokes don't land. Like it's such a team effort every single time, all the time. And I think this was just a really fun one to go back and forth. And then you have the opportunity to throw back to Sudeikis as Robert Osborne for a bit of like a reprieve in between. Just fun, just a fun sketch.
Yeah, a good opportunity for her to sing.
Yeah, another one. Yeah. As she should every time.
Every time. Yeah, whenever she gets the chance, she should try to sing. So yeah, that was a really good one. That was The Essentials with Robert Osborne. That was a good sketch.
Yes.
There were a couple that I noted too from this episode. There was a Mega Mart one. So back in the early 2010s, SNL did these sketches where it was like the Kickspit Underground Music Festival. Or it was like promoting some sort of event and all these graphics and loud talking and all this stuff. So they also had like a high school graduation one and an Easter Mass one. So this one was about a Black Friday sale at the Mega Mart. And Anne was only in this for like 15 seconds. I think I charted it was like 17 seconds.
Oh my
I
gosh.
went back and I'm like, how long was she even in this? But she played a shopper that was all hopped up on Four Loko. And it was so impressive, just her just stringing together this hyped up caffeine and alcohol laden 17-second diatribe. Like it was really funny.
People have already started camping out in the tailgate sponsored by Four Loko, America's premier hillbilly and solo fuel. If you show up too late, you will be humiliated.
I'm ready to do whatever it takes to get the 12 finished in the flesh. This is fucking kid. I've steeled myself, my state's in order, and I've made peace with my God and those around me. So I will get the 12 by 12 finished in the flesh. This is fucking kid. Just you wait. Whoa, what a day for shopping.
Your shopping gorge.
We got to see Anne, if you can imagine Anne, all hopped up on Four Loko, just talking about how excited she is.
And how much harder as well, it's one thing if you're given 3 to 4 minutes in an entire sketch to be funny or land the joke. But when you have 17 seconds to do it so perfectly that not only do you not mess up anyone else, but you are memorable for your 17 seconds, that's even more of a testament to her talent and her comedic timing, I think.
It's all it took to make an impression. And then she did, speaking of impressions, I didn't do that on purpose. Speaking of impressions, she did a really great impression of Katie Holmes. So how do you feel, Kaleena, about hosts? Like, it's one thing for cast members to trot out these impressions, but when you see a host come out and do like a spot-on impression, how do you feel as a viewer? Like, that's bonus points, am I right?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's so fun, and I think it's especially, I don't want to say like dangerous, but when theoretically these are people that they like can or have worked alongside, like you can maybe assume that sometimes the people they're doing impressions of are like close friends or someone they might like have to go to work and see, and you wonder like, wow, how well do you know each other that you already had this to kind of imitate? I absolutely think it's so much more fun. And again, that's like it's a really bold and brave thing for these hosts to do, because you almost assume if you're going to come to SNL that the cast are like the people that have impressions in the bag, right? Like you almost assume you're not going to be expected to do it. And so it's fun to see a host that not only wants to try it, but then nails it when they do it as well.
Yeah, with Katie Holmes, she had the verbal stuff down. She talked out the side of her mouth.
Yep.
She played with her hair a lot.
You used to be on a show called Dawson's Creek back in the 1900s. So that must have been pretty cool.
Oh, it was great. My character, Joey, was such a joy to play. On the surface, she just seemed like another cute, popular girl, but beneath it, she was this incredibly complicated and intelligent woman.
So this was a really good one. She did this on, it was the Miley Cyrus show.
Yeah.
The Vanessa Bayer Miley Cyrus show.
Hi, y'all.
So, yeah, that was good. Speaking
Thanks.
of So another episode, Kaleena, that Anne Hathaway just totally threw herself into.
Yeah.
We're going to say, what, 2 for 2 here?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think I think the most, or like the clips that I rewatch the most are predominantly from this episode. I forgot how fun Girlfriend's Talk Show always was, just in general as a sketch. So that was a fun one to revisit. She does a great job kind of playing Tara, like the new best friend, and she's just kind of like punk and whatever, and she has this cool blonde wig. I was really impressed, not that this is necessarily like a huge feat, but I just instantly believe that Anne is like a young gossipy teenager. You know, like that, like sometimes when hosts go do certain sketches where they're aged up or down, you're not fully like into it necessarily, but you're like, yeah, whatever, this is the sketch, I'm on board for like the next 3 minutes. But she just seamlessly goes right into this. And you're like, yeah, I'm watching the Girlfriend's Talk Show, and these are all a bunch of like young teenagers that are talking about boyfriends and cupcakes and like whatever. And I thought she was a really fun addition to kind of the natural chemistry that Cecily and Adie already have. So that one I thought was really fun.
2 new cast members that she got to play with too, because this is the third episode that she hosted. Yeah, so this is
new cast members. What a crazy thing to say about them.
Thinking of Adie and Cecily as
the
new
newbies,
yeah. That this is early in their in both of their tenures, I believe. This was their 7th episode.
I don't think I realized that. Thank you for bringing that up. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know, they were totally new. Trying to just Cecily and Adie had this Girlfriend's Talk Show that they were doing, and Anne like completely fit right in right here. I do want to shout out too from this episode, again, November of 2012. She got to show off her voice again in the monologue. So they did like a Les Miserables type of performance, and the entire cast got involved. Like this was so much fun.
One more day till I go home. Will we ever meet again? One more day dealing with Jason.
Wait, what do you mean? Did I do something?
What a show I could have done. If they let me play Stefan.
I don't know if you had a chance to go back and watch this one, but the entire everybody in the cast, Tim Robinson was there singing.
I didn't go back and rewatch it, but now that you're reminding me, I do remember it because like I mentioned, I'm a theater kid, so I was all about everything Les Mis in 2012. That's oh gosh, yeah, I love that they made her or not made her. I love they gave her the opportunity to sing in every episode because that's what I think she should be doing.
That's one of her strong points. So yeah, good monologue. Sure. Girlfriend's Talk Show was the first sketch right after the monologue. Yeah. I think this was another strong outing. Like, I'm curious as to what you highlighted, see if it matches up.
Yeah, I imagine we probably have similar ones. I want to mention one more thing. Like, I'm flabbergasted that you told me how new Cecily and Aidy were, because I don't take back what I said about how good their chemistry is. I think if anything, that proves that they don't have to be seasoned veterans to just immediately be so good and like have become the icons that, you know, we now view them as. I also have Homeland on there, which I must say I did not ever watch Homeland, and yet I feel like I understood perfectly what the formula of the show was. Also, I love Mandy Patinkin, and so I loved Hader's impression of him, which was so fun. But her physical comedy in this sketch, I actually did, I highly recommend everyone doing this. I watched this sketch in regular time, but then just kind of for fun, I went back and watched it on 2x speed to to see kind of if the physical comedy was like even more bizarre. And it was like, it made me laugh even more. But I think not only is her physical comedy so good, she has to be extremely expressive in this sketch, like doing kind of like bizarre facial expressions. It also has to be timed really well because the camera is cutting to Keenan often like describing, or Keenan or Bill like describing something she's doing, and then it cuts to her. And so if she's also not paying attention to like the real-time kind of editing and like the flow and where the camera is going to be, then that also messes up the joke. So I know I keep like harping on this, but she's a host who's so good at this. And I think it really, again, complements her strong acting skills and her like film background, that she's aware of this stuff. But also she kind of had to make herself look really silly and kind of melodramatic, and not all the hosts are willing to do that. Not all the hosts are willing to do her jazz breakdown or make like, you know, like the ugly crying face and things. I think she was just really, really incredible in this sketch, and to me, she's definitely the standout from it.
Oh, what's going on here, David? Are you guys talking about me? Why are you talking about me? Oh, hi, Brody. Are you leaving your wife for me yet? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, a couple things that this sketch tells me is what you alluded to. One is that part of being a great SNL host is understanding the mechanics of SNL. So you're right. She had to understand all those, like knowing...
like when it was going to cut to her.
When it was going to cut to her. She had to have the right facial expression at the right time. So she just has to, you have to understand the show and the mechanics of the show and be a good actor in that way about hitting all those marks and all those spots. Also, this is a sketch that tells me, this is one of those types of sketches that tell me that like the show almost says we love our host.
Yeah.
So because she was given so much to do, there was like a lot on her plate in this one. She's selling the hell out of this material.
She really is. She really is.
So funny. I'm not even familiar. I'm not familiar with Homeland, with the source material, but I felt like I didn't need to be. I felt like I looked it up because I was like, was that the one with Claire Danes? And yeah, she was playing Claire Danes, the character that Claire Danes played in Homeland. Mm-hmm. But she's selling it so hard.
Well. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
She's
obviously the show loves her.
Yeah, which is great. You know, I think that's another kind of compliment towards her is like, yeah, when you have a host in general, but especially if it's a repeat host, if they like you and they know you're down, they'll kind of cater to you. They'll cater to your strengths, or they'll cater to what you think you're going to be really funny at, or they'll write sketches for you. But there's also been repeat hosts where you can tell they were just trying to collect their paycheck that week. You know, they got the material out. They had to do what they had to do. So I think you're absolutely right. This is one that really demonstrates how much they love having her in the room. Yeah,
standout from this episode, that's the Homeland sketch. Yeah. You said you got another one?
My other favorite is American Gothic.
Big Jason girl, right?
Yeah, a huge Sudeikis girl. I just think the premise is so funny. Like, it's so simple, but it makes me laugh so hard. I'm from Chicago, so I've seen the American Gothic in person, and it's one of those things that, yeah, you look at it and you're like, this is so weird. Like not to at all be dismissive towards anyone's art or their intention or anything like that. But it's one of those like iconic Americana images, right? Like it's just something that's associated in our mind in like American art and culture. And so to have the idea to tell like the behind the scenes story of how this painting came to be, and it could have been anything, you know, like they could have made the two people be like anything, but the fact that they're treating it like they're two actors who met on a set, like, oh, nice to meet you, like, you know, like they're making it like a whole thing. And again, and I hate to keep acting like this isn't how the show functions, but Sudeikis is another one of those ones that like he's going to bring a certain energy and there's going to be a certain level of expectation for his performance. And Anne, as the literal only other person on screen with him, has to step up and is expected to be just as funny or funny in a different kind of way. And she kills it. She made me laugh just as much, if not harder, than Sudeikis did in this sketch. They have such a fun chemistry together. Even their physical chemistry when they try out like the buddy cop pose, like nothing was awkward about their interactions. And that could have really derailed the sketch if it wasn't.
Yeah, the premise, you're right. The premise of this is so great. These two people who are posing for that American Gothic painting were goofballs. And I love that they took that approach. Like, it's like these two people who look serious in the painting are actually two real big goofballs, and they're trying these different poses. Anne does what she calls a lizard pose at a certain point. That was hilarious. Anne is great at slapstick humor. Yeah. And that's such a good point that she has to match Jason Sudeikis, who's one of like the masters of that kind of humor. And she matched him. Sometimes she exceeded that energy.
Yeah, like her crooked eyes when she took off the glasses. Her eyes,
Kaleena, like she had to go cross-eyed. And that was a so good bit there at the end. It was so good. So I love that Anne, she's just like, yeah, I can do a goofball too. I can, let's do it. Let's
have so much fun with it. Yeah.
Yes, that's very funny. But really, we need to focus so I can start the painting.
Of course. Hey, Grant, you know what would be fun though? Maybe if we did something like this, like where we pose back to back like that. You know, like I'm a hot-headed newsman, right?
And I'm a brassy reporter who pushes his buttons.
Yeah, and I got my arms crossed like I'm a cool guy.
And I'm like, get a load of this guy.
To me, this and like the Homeland one were probably the two standouts. Because we saw Anne's range, and this was this was her actually the last sketch that she ended up doing, unless she hosts again, which we might get to. But this is the last sketch of her first 3 episodes. That's and crazy. What a beautiful one to end on. And being
what
a
3 great
like
episodes. I was very happy. Yes. She's amazing. I think she has 3 solid episodes. I think if you host multiple times and you have even just 1 or 2 sketches that are standout, that's an achievement. But she has multiple, and I think she only got better every single time. I would love to see her back.
Yeah, no kidding. It's been we're going on over 11 years since her last hosting gig. Like, you know, it is time, right? That she
it's not like she hasn't been working. She's been available. She's had stuff to come promote. I would love to see her come back. I wonder if they're waiting. I was going through her IMDb as well, and she's done a lot of serious projects. I wonder if they're waiting for her to do something a little bit more lighthearted to come on the show to promote. Not that necessarily is like a deciding factor as to whether you get asked to host, but I don't know if like promoting Eileen would have been the reason to bring her on for the show, you know? But I also don't think you necessarily need a reason. Like, if you're good and you haven't been on in a while, I would love to eventually see her make her way into the 5-Timers Club. I think she would be very earned into that. I'm sure she's working on something. I think we could hold out hope that maybe in the next couple of years we can get her back.
She's got to come back.
She has to.
As an SNL nerd, much like I am, that a bunch of us, we're looking ahead next year and we're saying SNL 50. Right, so we're all playing like fantasy bookers.
Oh yeah,
for SNL 50, and Anne Hathaway,
she's
the type of host that everybody would love to see come back for like a special season and a special occasion, at least for the 50th, the actual show, right? Like Anne, you want to see her back for the actual show, right?
I just like you broke my brain that you just reminded me of that. I feel like SNL 40 was yesterday.
I know. It's ridiculous.
Holy cow. We're already
at
50. Oh, my goodness. She would be great. I think she would be a great host. If I were in her shoes, I would be calling my agent, my manager, my publicist. I'd be like, can someone reach out to Lauren and just, you just put some feelers out there for me. Like, I would be trying to come back, let alone, just wait to see if I get invited back.
Yeah, 100%. I think all SNL nerds would gladly have that. So here on the SNL Hall of Fame, Kaleena, we like to kind of like summarize and wrap it up in a nice little bow.
Yeah.
And so what traits does Anne Hathaway have as an SNL host that makes her someone that we should remember fondly as a host?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the main trait that sticks out to me is just how willing she was, just right off the bat, that she fully accepts and leans into the formula of what makes SNL and what makes it so weird and fun and just zany. I think she fully commits to every sketch that she's in, which I think makes us want to see her more, because we can kind of assume whatever the material is going to be, she's going to be all in, which is going to make it more enjoyable for us as the audience. I think that she's really charming and likable. We get to see her sing, we get to see her dance, we get to see her be kooky, we get to see her be Mary Poppins and Judy Garland and Katie Holmes. She can do impressions. Not to like hype her up too much, but she's kind of like the whole package for, I think, what you would want out of a host. And I think as well, just the fact that she hasn't hosted in so long is almost more like incentive for why she's memorable and why we should be keeping her at the forefront.
So there's that. Thank you so much, Kaleena Steakle. It's like you've been here all along. You fit in very well, and I hope we get to have you back sometime in the very near future. So there's that. Let's now go to the Anne Hathaway sketch selection. And this is from her first hosting stint. October 4th, 2008. It features Anne, Bobby Moynihan, Kerry Wilson, Bill Hader, and Will Forte. And it is a Mary Poppins sketch. So let's go to that now.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious, if you say it loud enough, you'll always sound precocious. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Oh, Mary Poppins, that was ever so much fun.
What a delightful new word.
It must be the longest word in the dictionary.
And the silliest.
What does it mean, Mary Poppins?
What? Oh, that doesn't matter. It's just a silly billy word. Now, who wants to ride a magical carousel?
I do, but first, please tell us what that word means.
Yes, there must be some kind of working definition.
Well, if you must know, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious is a disease of the liver. It's very rare and extremely painful.
Goodness, how'd you ever learn a word like that, Mary Poppins?
I have it. I have the disease.
Oh, is it as fun to have as it is to say, Mary Poppins?
Well, no. What happens, basically, is that your liver stops producing bile. Gradually, you lose the ability to break down acids, and eventually your body just shuts down. Sure is fun to sing, though. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Is it contagious, Mary Poppins?
Yes. But only for grown-ups.
What does that mean?
How do I explain it? Sometimes, when a man and a woman really fancy each other...
Hello, everyone! Oh, easy, children. I got one heck of a stomachache. Must be your cooking, Mary Poppins.
We We just learned a new word. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Oh, how delightful.
It's a disease of the liver.
Mary Poppins has it.
It's spread amongst grown-ups.
Is that right? Children, would you, excuse us for one moment? What they say, Mary? Do you have something?
Oh, Bert, don't worry. You look healthy to me.
Healthy? I've got black lung from sweeping the chimneys, and now you've given me supercalifragi whatever.
Expialidocious.
Shut it.
Oh, Bert, cheer up. It's not that bad because just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down in the most delightful way.
Sugar, that'll cure my disease.
Hello, gang.
Constable Jones!
Oh, don't come near me. I'm feeling awful sick. Must be your cooking, Mary Poppins. So, what's the good word?
Listen, Tony.
Oh, no. Supercalifragi what?
Expialidocious.
Come on. I'll buy you a whiskey. Come on.
This has been a very unusual day, Mary Poppins.
Well, I'm a very unusual nanny. I guess I'm in pretty serious denial. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
That was fantastic. A little twist on the Mary Poppins that we're familiar with, but nevertheless, it's all there for you. So what do you think? Is Anne Hathaway a Hall of Famer in the host category? We'll have to wait and see how you vote. And voting will be open in May for a week, where you cast your 15 ballots and we tabulate them and let you know who makes the cut at 66.7% of the vote. That's what we have for you this week. I hope you enjoyed yourself here in the SNL Hall of Fame. We certainly enjoyed having you. And next week, we're going to enjoy having Jamie Burwood discuss host John Hamm. So tune in for that one. Download it wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you would do me a favor, and on the way out, as you pass the Weekend Update exhibit, turn out the lights, because the SNL Hall of Fame is now closed.
Thanks for listening to the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. Make sure to rate, review, share, and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media at SNLHOF. This is Doug DeNance saying, see you next week.
To podcasts and such.